The human mercenary saved the royal daughters. The king's repayment left him speechless. The debris field stretched endlessly, a graveyard of shattered hulls catching starlight like broken glass. Kai Brennan's corvette threaded through the chaos, her scarred hull testament to a dozen similar runs. His fingers moved across flight controls, while his eyes tracked the tactical display bleeding red hostiles. 23 signatures, the contact had said 8. "Lying bastard," Kai muttered. The pirate installation loomed ahead, a fortress carved into a massive rotating asteroid. Professional work, which meant professional problems. The corvette's stealth coating bought him 10 minutes. Kai brought the ship low and fast, skimming the asteroid's surface until he found a maintenance airlock on the dark side. He sealed his combat armor and checked his weapons. Suppressed kinetic pistol, plasma blade, breaching charges. The contract display glowed on his wrist. 2 Sorelli princesses, kidnapped 3 days ago. Extract and deliver. Payment on completion. Simple, except nothing about this felt clean. The airlock cycled. Kai moved into darkness, his helmet's filters painting the corridor green and gray. He planted his first charge, set the timer, and continued deeper. The pirates had carved these tunnels with mining equipment, all rough stone and exposed conduit. Kai moved through shadows. The first guard died without sound, his blade finding the gap between helmet and armor. The second managed a choked gasp before the suppressed pistol coughed twice. Professional, efficient. The detention level sat 3 floors down, protected by a reinforced bulkhead that his breaching charge peeled open. Alarms would trigger soon. Kai moved fast through smoke, tracking corners until he found the cell. He overrode the lock and shouldered through. The Sorelli princess hit him like a freight train. Azura's luminous azure skin glowed as she drove her shoulder into his chest, 4-fingered hands seeking pressure points with disturbing precision. Kai's training kicked in. He redirected her momentum, caught her wrist, twisted. She countered with a leg sweep that nearly took him down. They grappled in the narrow space, all controlled violence. "Stop," Kai managed extraction. She drove an elbow toward his throat. He blocked, caught her arm, forced her against the wall. "I'm here for the rescue," he growled, shoving the contract display in her face. Azura froze, her brilliant sapphire eyes focusing on the Sorelli royal crest. Her body remained coiled beneath his grip, but her expression shifted from fury to rapid assessment. "You're late," she said, her voice carrying aristocratic precision. "You're welcome." Kai released her. Behind her, a younger Sorelli woman with rose-pink skin pressed against the wall, eyes wide. "Princess Lissa?" The younger princess nodded. Azura moved to her sister, gripping her shoulder. "Can you fight?" she asked Kai. "Can you follow orders?" The distant wail of alarms cut off her response. Kai's charges had blown on schedule. "Stay close. Do exactly what I say." He reloaded and moved toward the corridor. 5 minutes before this place floods with hostiles. They made it 3 corridors before the first pirates appeared. 6 of them, heavily armed, funneling through a choke point. Kai dropped 2 before Azura swept past him, impossibly fast, her borrowed pistol coughing death. She fought like water, flowing around obstacles and striking from unexpected angles. Military training. Real combat experience. "Left flank," he called, pivoting opposite. She moved without question, their positions interlocking with coordination that usually took months to develop. Another pirate fell. Then another. Lissa stayed low between them. The structural collapse came without warning, a deep groan, then ceiling peeling away in a shower of stone and metal. Their primary route disappeared beneath rubble, emergency bulkheads slamming down. "Secondary routes compromised," Kai said, checking his display. "Mining tunnel, 200 meters. It's going to be tight." "How tight?" Azura's skin had darkened with stress. "Pray we don't decompress tight." They ran through passages that grew progressively rougher until they scrambled through bare rock. The tunnel narrowed to barely shoulder width. Kai could hear air whistling through cracks. This section had never been properly sealed. The explosion came from behind, a pirate grenade blowing a fissure through the wall. Pressure dropped instantly, the whistling becoming a howling scream as atmosphere vented into space. Lissa stumbled, gasping. Kai grabbed her, pushed her forward, but the breach was widening. Azura moved with purpose, not panic. She wrenched a plasma welder from a dead pirate's belt and fired it at maximum intensity into the fissure. The superheated plasma fused rock and metal together. The howling diminished to silence. She met Kai's eyes across the tunnel, her chest heaving, her azure skin bright with intensity. He nodded once. She'd just saved all their lives. They reached his ship with pirates on their heels, the Widow's Mercy already cycling engines. He hit the boarding ramp at full speed, Azura and Lissa behind him, and sealed the hatch as kinetic rounds sparked off the hull. "Weapons station portside," Kai barked, strapping into the pilot's seat. "Can you shoot?" Azura slid into the gunner's position. "Try me." The corvette punched away from the asteroid with crushing acceleration. Pirate fighters swarmed after them. Kai threw the ship into a hard roll, diving toward the densest part of the debris field. Azura's hands moved across the weapons controls, learning the system in real time. Her first shots went wide. Her second grouping caught a fighter's engine, tearing it apart in fire and debris. Her third was perfect. They moved through the asteroid field like dancers, Kai's piloting and Azura's firing synchronizing without conscious communication. He'd banked toward cover, and she'd already be tracking the fighter emerging from his blind spot. She'd call out incoming vectors, and he'd be moving before the words finished. When they broke free, 5 pirate fighters lay scattered behind them, and the Widow's Mercy was streaming coolant, but still flying. Kai set course for Imperial Station and allowed himself a single breath of relief. "Your ship handles well," Azura said quietly. "You shoot well." Something that might have been a smile crossed her face before her royal composure reasserted itself. She moved to check on Lissa, who sat trembling in the passenger compartment, and Kai turned his attention back to navigation. "Just another job. Deliver the cargo, collect the payment, move on." Imperial Station filled the viewport 3 hours later, a massive orbital construct that made his corvette look like an insect approaching a cathedral. The docking protocols were elaborate, the security scans invasive, the armed escorts excessive. Kai followed every instruction with professional detachment. The docking bay held more armed soldiers than seemed necessary for a peaceful homecoming. Emperor Valen Sorelli stood at the center, imposing, ancient, radiating authority. His deep indigo skin seemed to drink the light, his pale eyes missing nothing as Azura and Lissa descended the boarding ramp and walked into his embrace. Kai watched from the hatch, ready to collect payment and disappear. He'd done his job. Time to leave before complications started. Valen released his daughters and turned to face Kai with the weight of empires in his gaze. "You have saved my children," the Emperor said, his voice carrying across the bay with formal precision. "By the ancient law of our people, you have earned a blood debt that can only be honored through union. You will marry Crown Princess Azura, binding your life to our family and your honor to our throne." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Kai's mind went blank, his tactical awareness shorting out as he tried to process what he'd just heard. He looked at Azura. Her sapphire eyes were wide with shock, her luminous skin flickering with emotions he couldn't name. Neither of them spoke. The Emperor's word, Kai understood distantly, was not a request. It was law. The guest quarters were a gilded cage. Kai stood at the viewport watching starships drift past, his reflection ghosting in the glass. 3 hours since the Emperor's proclamation. 3 hours of being escorted by guards who treated him like he might bolt. They weren't wrong. The door chimed. An elderly Sorelli entered, pale blue skin almost white, faded eyes that missed nothing. Traditional robes marked him as someone important. "Advisor Tyron, I serve Emperor Valen in matters of law and custom." "Then explain how forced marriage is legal," Kai said evenly. "You are not on human worlds. Blood debt is sacred among our people. You saved the Emperor's heirs at risk to your own life." Tyron settled into a chair. "You fought beside the Crown Princess as equals. You trusted her judgment. She trusted yours. That is the bond our law recognizes." Kai wanted to argue, but the old Sorelli had a point. He'd given Azura his back in that firefight. That trust didn't come from contracts. "What if I refuse?" "Then you dishonor the Emperor and insult the Crown Princess. The Emperor's decision is absolute in matters of ancient custom." Kai turned back to the viewport. She doesn't want this either. No, but she will do her duty. The question is whether you possess the same strength. Azura stormed into her father's chambers without announcement. Her azure skin darkened nearly to cobalt. Valen stood at his viewport, the crown of 7 stars catching light. Rescind it, she said. Good evening, daughter. Rescind the marriage decree. I cannot. His expression remained grave. Blood debt transcends politics. He saved you and your sister. He fought with honor. I barely know this human. Marriage should serve the Empire's interests, not satisfy ancient ritual. It honors the man who preserved my family. Valen's pale eyes softened slightly. You have always performed your duty. This is no different. Every other duty made sense. Her voice sharpened. This is chaos disguised as tradition. Then bring order to the chaos. You are Azura Cyrelli. You have commanded warriors, negotiated treaties, survived assassination attempts. One human mercenary should not defeat you. His conviction was absolute. Azura straightened, training reasserting control. When is the betrothal ceremony? Tomorrow evening. The grand hall glittered with assembled nobility. Kai stood beside Azura in formal attire that felt wrong, stiff, uncomfortable. She wore flowing robes that made her look more warrior than bride. Neither had spoken since entering. The ceremony was elaborate theater, vows in a language Kai didn't understand, symbolic gestures that meant nothing to him, witnesses who stared with expressions ranging from curiosity to hostility. He repeated words Terran had taught him, voice flat and mechanical. When the officiant declared them betrothed, Azura's hand rested briefly on his forearm. Her skin was cool. She withdrew almost immediately. The reception was worse. Nobility approached offering congratulations that sounded like condolences. Most ignored Kai entirely. Those who acknowledged him did so with contempt. Lady Navarra approached with predatory grace, teal-blue skin and sharp features radiating superiority. How fascinating, a mercenary elevated to imperial consort. Her voice carried to nearby courtiers. Tell me, human, do you comprehend the complexities of Cyrelli governance, the centuries of tradition you'll be expected to uphold? I'm a fast learner. Learning and understanding are different matters. The crown princess requires a partner who can support her duties, navigate court politics, represent our culture. These are not skills acquired through violence. Navarra, Azura's voice cut like a blade. Your concern is noted. I merely wish to ensure you have the support you deserve. She glided away, leaving implications hanging like poison. Distant cousin, Azura said quietly. Third in line for succession. She thinks you're a vulnerability she can exploit. The explosion came without warning. The garden reception erupted in chaos, fire and shrapnel tearing through foliage, screams cutting the night. Kai's combat instincts kicked in. He grabbed Azura, pulling her behind a stone planter as kinetic rounds sparked off surfaces. Lissa, Azura gasped. Kai spotted the younger princess frozen near the fountain. He moved low, using cover as guards returned fire toward upper levels where muzzle flashes strobed. He reached Lissa, shielded her, guided her back. Azura had acquired a weapon and was providing covering fire with professional precision. Shooter, northeast balcony, 3rd level, Kai called out. Azura adjusted, squeezed off 3 rounds. A body tumbled from the balcony. Second shooter, west corridor. They moved in coordination, reading intentions through gesture and position. Kai covered fleeing civilians while Azura neutralized threats. Palace security swarmed in, but the assassination attempt was already over. 4 dead, 12 wounded. They were sealed in a secure room while guards swept the grounds. Just the 2 of them, adrenaline still singing through their veins. Azura's hands trembled slightly as she set down the weapon. Lissa's safe, with your father and medical staff. Kai leaned against the wall. Professional hit, coordinated timing. They knew exactly when we'd be vulnerable. Someone in the palace. Azura's skin darkened. Someone who knows our security protocols. Silence settled between them. I'm terrified, Azura said suddenly, looking away. This marriage will cost me the respect of my warriors, reduce me to a political symbol. Everything I've worked for. They'll say I compromised it all for a human. Kai recognized the vulnerability in those words, the trust required to voice them. I understand, he said quietly, being defined by others' expectations instead of your own choices. I've spent years avoiding permanent attachments because they felt like weakness. Now, I'm trapped in exactly what I've always run from. You could still run, refuse the marriage, accept exile. Could you? No, I will do my duty even if it destroys me. Then I guess we're both trapped, but maybe we don't have to be enemies while we're trapped together. Something shifted in Azura's expression, not acceptance, but recognition. They were both soldiers following orders they hated. The assassination wasn't random, she said, tactical mind reasserting itself. Whoever planned this will try again. Then we find them first. The next morning, Kai returned to combat training to channel frustration. The palace facility was extensive. Sparring areas, weapons ranges, simulation chambers. He was running strike patterns when Azura entered in training gear. They regarded each other across the mat. You're using your left side too much, she observed. Leaves your right flank exposed. Your stance is too rigid. Sacrifice mobility for balance. Prove it. They sparred for an hour, testing limits and exposing weaknesses. Azura's technique was precise and disciplined. Kai fought looser, adapting in real time, using unpredictability as advantage. Neither could gain decisive victory, but both learned to read the other's tells. When they stopped, both breathing hard, something had shifted. Not friendship, not trust, but respect earned through sweat rather than forced ceremony. They began training together daily. The physical language they developed carried more honesty than words, challenge and acknowledgement, frustration and grudging admiration. It was during one session that Kai found the device. He'd noticed the maintenance panel was ajar. Inside, nestled among power conduits, sat a compact encrypted communicator, military-grade, expensive, not palace-issued. He brought it to Azura immediately. She examined it, tactical mind processing implications. This transmits to external receivers. Someone's been feeding information outside the palace. About security protocols, guard rotations, when we'd be vulnerable. Their eyes met, shared realization crystallizing. The assassination was coordinated with inside intelligence, Azura said slowly. Someone in the court is working with external threats. Your cousin? Possibly, or others who see advantage in chaos. Decision hardened in her expression. We investigate, quietly, trust no one. Not even your father? Not until we understand the scope. Kai nodded. It was the first decision they'd made by choice rather than circumstance. The first time they'd chosen to be partners instead of prisoners. It felt like progress. Tomorrow we start mapping court communication patterns, Azura said. Anyone with access to palace security. And we keep training. When they try again, and they will, we need to be ready. Agreed. She extended her hand. Kai took it, feeling the cool smoothness of her four-fingered grip, the strength in her grasp. They had a common enemy now. That was something to build on. Maybe enough to survive what was coming. The conspiracy investigation fractured the court. Azura spent days analyzing communication logs, questioning palace staff with precision that barely masked suspicion. The stress carved exhaustion into her features. Kai watched her withdraw, reverting to cold formality. The vulnerability she'd shown after the assassination disappeared behind royal discipline. She spoke to him only about the investigation, words clipped and professional, her skin perpetually darkened. It felt like rejection. Commander Reeves arrived on what he claimed was a social visit. The stocky human moved through corridors with a soldier's awareness. Nice place, Reeves said in the training facility. Looks like a prison. Feels like one, too. Got word you'd married alien royalty. Seemed out of character. Reeves' eyes scanned tactically. If you need an exit strategy, say the word. Kai considered it. A week ago, he would have taken it without hesitation. Now the situation was complicated. The conspiracy, the threat to Azura's family, the unexpected partnership. Not yet. There's something happening here, something bigger. Then you're staying because you want to, not because you have to. Reeves studied him. Interesting. I'm staying because people will die if I don't. Sure, keep telling yourself that. The formal state dinner felt like warfare conducted with etiquette. Kai sat beside Azura at the head table, isolated in a sea of incomprehensible diplomacy. Lady Navarra rose during the third course, teal-blue skin catching light. "Forgive my directness, Your Highness, but recent events raise questions about the Crown Princess's judgment. Accepting a human spouse suggests a willingness to compromise traditional values. Some wonder if such flexibility extends to governance." Azura set down her utensil with deliberate care. "Commander Brennan saved my life and my sister's life. He has proven himself in combat and investigation. Your concerns say more about your prejudices than his capabilities." "I question not his species, but his understanding of our culture, our responsibilities." Navarra's smile was sharp. "A consort must support the Crown Princess in complex negotiations. Can he?" "He can and he will. This discussion is closed." Kai recognized the defense. Political necessity, words delivered with detachment that revealed nothing. She'd defended him perfectly while maintaining distance that cut deeper than the insults. After dinner, Kai found Azura in her quarters. "You didn't have to do that." "It was necessary." Navarra was testing for weakness. "Is that all it was? Political strategy?" "What else would it be? I thought we were past this, the walls, the distance. We are working together on the investigation. That doesn't require emotional entanglement." "So everything you said after the assassination about being terrified about duty destroying you, that was just adrenaline?" The words landed like blows. "Fine, I'll stay out of your way." She paused at the threshold, her back to him. For a moment he thought she might speak. Instead, she left. That night, Kai went to the palace archives alone. The financial records required security clearance he didn't have, but Reeves had taught him basic infiltration. He bypassed encryption and began tracing payment patterns, following credits that connected palace accounts to external sources. Hours of work revealed the pattern. Large transfers from accounts linked to Navarra's family holdings, routed through intermediaries, terminating in systems controlled by pirate syndicates. The kidnapping had been funded through Navarra's money. Kai downloaded the evidence onto a secure drive, undeniable proof. The ambush came from behind. 3 assassins emerged from shadows between archive stacks, blades drawn, movements coordinated. Kai fought with desperate efficiency, taking down the first with a broken neck, deflecting the second's blade. The third assassin's blade found his side, sliding between armor plates. Pain exploded through his torso as steel carved through muscle and scraped bone. Kai drove his elbow into the assassin's face, twisted away. He killed the second assassin with a dropped weapon. The third retreated. Kai pressed his hand against the wound, felt hot blood seeping through his fingers. The blade had gone deep. He staggered toward the exit, leaving blood on ancient stone. His quarters felt impossibly far. Kai made it inside, applied crude pressure bandages with hands that shook. The wound kept bleeding. Professional help would mean explanations, revealing the investigation before they were ready. He couldn't show weakness in a court he no longer trusted. Kai collapsed onto the bed, maintaining pressure, his vision tunneling as blood loss accelerated. He missed the security briefing, missed training. Time became fluid, measured only in pain. The door chimed, once, twice, then the override engaged and Azura entered. She found him barely conscious, uniform soaked dark with blood. "Kai!" Her voice cracked. She was beside him instantly, hands moving over the wound, her azure skin flaring bright. "What happened? Why didn't you call for help?" Couldn't trust, had to, evidence. "Stop talking." Her hands trembled as she peeled away bandages, revealing the deep puncture. Her control shattered completely. "You stubborn fool. You're dying and you were just going to hide it?" Didn't want to seem weak. "You thought I would judge you for being injured?" She applied pressure while calling for medical staff, her voice commanding despite shaking hands. Palace physicians rushed in with equipment. While they worked, Azura never left his side. Her hand found his, cool fingers wrapping around his, and for the first time since the betrothal, she touched him without political calculation. "Stay with me." she whispered, formal control abandoned. Please, not when I'm just starting to understand. The walls she'd built weren't protection from him. They were protection from herself, from the terrifying possibility of caring. The physicians sealed the wound with medical foam and synthesized tissue. Their expressions suggested he'd barely made it. When they left, Azura remained. She sat on the bed's edge, still holding his hand, her skin glowing with suppressed emotions. I'm sorry, for the distance, for pretending I didn't feel anything. I was scared. Of this, of wanting something for myself instead of just performing duty, of caring about someone who might leave or die. I'm scared too, that's why I kept moving, never staying anywhere long enough to matter. Now I'm stuck here, with you, with this marriage I never wanted. He squeezed her hand gently, and somehow that's less terrifying than I thought. She leaned forward, resting her forehead against his. Her skin was cool, her breath steady. Tell me what happened. Found evidence, Navarra's accounts funding the kidnapping, payments to pirate syndicates. He gestured toward the secure drive. Everything we need. Assassins were waiting. Her expression hardened. Then we take this to my father. End this tonight. Together? Together. She stood, warrior bearing reasserting itself, but her eyes held warmth. When you're strong enough to walk, we move. Until then, I'm staying here. Azura, no arguments. She settled into a chair beside the bed. I need to tell you something. That conversation after the state dinner, everything I said about duty being all that matters. I was lying. To you, to myself. The truth is that the thought of losing you terrifies me more than any political consequence. You have a funny way of showing it. I'm not practiced at this, at caring about someone beyond strategic value. Her skin flickered between darker and brighter shades. But I'm learning, and I want to keep learning, if you'll let me. Kai looked at her, this warrior princess who'd fought beside him, defended him to her court, and finally admitted her facade protected someone just as afraid of connection as he was. Yeah, I'd like that. She smiled then, genuine and unguarded. They had a long way to go. The conspiracy still threatened them. The court remained hostile. But for the first time since the Emperor's proclamation, Kai felt like maybe they could survive this together. Maybe even build something worth keeping. 2 days of healing gave Kai back his mobility. The synthesized tissue held, though his side ached with every movement. Azura barely left during that time, working through intelligence reports while keeping watch. They presented the evidence to Emperor Valen and Advisor Terran in private chambers. The financial trail was undeniable. Navarra's accounts funding Vrex Colthan's operations, payment records matching the kidnapping timeline, encrypted communications confirming coordination. Valen's pale eyes darkened as he reviewed the data. My own blood, conspiring with the creatures who took my daughters. She saw opportunity in chaos, Azura said. The wedding ceremony, 3 days hence, all royal family members present, maximum vulnerability. They'll attack then, Kai added. Navarra's already positioned supporters throughout the palace. Cancel the ceremony, Valen said. No, Azura's voice carried conviction. Canceling shows weakness. We use the ceremony as a trap. Draw out all conspirators at once. You're talking about turning your wedding into a battlefield, Kai said. Our wedding. And yes, we position loyal forces throughout the venue. When they attack, we end this completely. Valen studied them both. You've changed, daughter. Both of you. We've adapted. Azura's hand found Kai's briefly. Isn't that what you wanted? The Emperor nodded slowly. Proceed, but understand, if this fails, the cost will be severe. Wedding preparations became military operations disguised as celebration. Reeves positioned his people among palace security, loyal warriors were stationed in every approach, and Kai worked with Azura to identify defensive positions. They also wrote their vows. The ceremony requires traditional elements, Azura explained the night before, but there's room for personal words. If we're truly doing this, I want it to mean something. Even though we're using it as bait. Kai understood. The marriage had been forced, but what they built within it was theirs. They wrote together, words that spoke to equal partnership rather than obligation, to choice made despite circumstances. When they finished, Azura leaned against him, her head resting on his shoulder. "Are you ready for tomorrow?" she asked. "For the wedding or the war?" "Both. As ready as I'll ever be. Whatever happens, we face it together." "Together," she agreed. The grand hall glittered with assembled nobility. Kai stood at the altar watching Azura approach. She wore flowing robes in deep blue, her azure skin luminous, her expression serene despite knowing what was coming. Lissa walked beside her sister, rose-pink skin bright with nervous energy. The ceremony began with traditional elements. Kai performed his part while tracking every movement in the hall. Reeves stood near the eastern entrance. Loyal guards were positioned throughout, weapons concealed. Then came the personal vows. "Kai Brennan," Azura said, "I did not choose this union, but I choose what we've built within it. You've shown me that strength lies in adaptability, that trust must be earned, that partnership requires vulnerability." Her skin glowed brighter. "I choose to stand beside you, not because law demands it, but because you've proven yourself worthy." Kai felt the weight of every eye but remained focused on Azura. "Azura Sorelli, I've spent years running from connection. You've taught me that real strength comes from choosing to stay when leaving would be easier, from trusting someone enough to show them your fears." He took her hands. "I choose this partnership, not because your father commanded it, but because fighting beside you feels like home." The officiant spoke the final words, declaring them bound by blood debt and by choice. The explosion came exactly on schedule. The western wall erupted inward. Pirate mercenaries poured through, heavily armed, moving with precision. Vrex Colthan's towering form led the assault, his dark green exoskeleton gleaming, 4 arms wielding weapons. "Now!" Azura's voice cut through chaos. Kai drew the weapon concealed beneath his jacket. Around the hall, loyal guards revealed positions, returning fire. Reeves's people protected civilians while engaging mercenaries. Kai and Azura moved in perfect synchronization, their training translating into intuitive coordination. He covered while she neutralized threats. They protected Lissa and Valen, pushing them toward secured positions. "Navara," Azura called out, spotting her cousin attempting to escape. "Don't!" Lady Navara froze. Teal-blue skin darkened with fury. "You should have stayed out of court politics. You kidnapped my sister, tried to kill me." Azura's weapon remained steady. "This has always involved me. The throne should have been mine." Navara's voice carried decades of resentment. "And you chose treason rather than service." Azura gestured to guards. "Take her, she'll face trial." Navara struggled as guards restrained her. The political threat was contained. The physical threat remained. Vrex Colthan carved through defenders with brutal efficiency, moving toward the throne, toward Valen, clearly intending to finish what the kidnapping started. Kai intercepted him in the throne room. "Human, the mercenary who disrupted my operation." Vrex's voice resonated with synthetic translation. "Your interference cost me significantly." "Then consider this debt collection." They engaged with explosive violence. Vrex's 4 arms gave him overwhelming advantage, 2 weapons firing while 2 others struck. Kai rolled under the first attack, came up inside Vrex's guard, drove his blade into a joint between armor plates. The Kresh warrior grabbed Kai with 2 arms, lifted him, slammed him into a pillar hard enough to crack stone. Pain exploded through Kai's side. Azura's shot took Vrex in the shoulder, energy burning through chitin. The warrior dropped Kai, spun toward the new threat. "Together," Azura said, taking position beside Kai. They attacked in coordination. Kai low, while Azura provided covering fire, their movements the product of countless training sessions. Vrex was powerful, but they were faster, more adaptive. Kai exploited weaknesses while Azura's precision shots found gaps in armor. When Vrex lunged toward Azura, Kai drove his blade through the warrior's secondary joint. When the Kresh turned on him, Azura's shot caught Vrex's primary weapon arm. The battle became coordinated strikes, neither achieving decisive advantage alone, but together dismantling their opponent. Kai's blade found the warrior's lower thorax. Azura's energy weapon burned through Vrex's primary arm. The Kresh warrior stumbled, wounded beyond recovery. Azura's final shot was precise and merciless, dropping Vrex permanently. The throne room fell silent, except for labored breathing. The threat was ended. In the aftermath, Emperor Valen summoned them to his chambers. The crown of 7 stars seemed heavier than before. I underestimated the conspiracy's depth, and perhaps I underestimated the rigidity of our traditions. Valen looked at them both. Blood debt is sacred, but perhaps its expression should honor the spirit rather than the letter. You've proven your bond through battle and choice. He paused. If you wish to annul the marriage, I will grant it. The debt is satisfied. You are free to choose your own paths. Kai felt the weight of that offer. Freedom, the thing he'd always wanted. He looked at Azura. She met his eyes, her expression neutral, giving him space to decide without pressure. No, Kai said. I choose to stay married. Azura's skin flared bright with surprise. Are you certain? Valen asked. We didn't choose how this started, but we've built something real. Partnership based on trust and mutual respect. Kai turned to Azura. Unless you want the annulment? No, her answer came without hesitation. I choose this too. Choose us. Valen's expression softened. Then you have my blessing, not as law, but as father witnessing his daughter find genuine partnership. In Azura's quarters that night, exhaustion and relief settled over them. Kai sat at the viewport while Azura tended minor wounds from the battle. What happens now? She asked, applying medical gel to a cut on his shoulder. We establish new protocols for human Sorelli cooperation, prevent others from being trapped by traditions that don't serve them. He turned to face her. We figure out how to actually be married instead of just performing marriage. That sounds complicated. Probably, but we're good at complicated. He pulled her closer. We survived forced marriage, court intrigue, assassination attempts, and an alien pirate lord. Regular married life should be easier. Azura laughed, the sound genuine. You clearly don't understand Sorelli domestic politics. Then I guess you'll have to teach me. I suppose I will, she settled against him. For what it's worth, I'm glad you stayed. Glad we both stayed. Me too. They sat together watching distant stars, processing everything they'd survived. The forced marriage had become genuine partnership. The political arrangement had transformed into something neither expected, connection built on equal respect, tested by genuine danger, strong enough to bridge vast differences. But that was tomorrow's work. Tonight, they were simply 2 warriors who'd survived impossible odds and chosen each other anyway. That was enough.